Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and before this video starts, I just want to say something really quick. Basically, I've started a second channel because of something YouTube has implemented, so I've posted a community post about it, but if you haven't seen it, I'll comment it down below and pin it. Basically, everything is going to stay the same, apart from it's going to be one video a day on each channel instead of two on one. So I think the current plan is to have the malicious compliance on this channel, and then the other board on the other channel, and then to adjust over time to see what you guys like the best. So please go and subscribe to the other channel so you don't miss out on any other videos. It's just going to be called Storytime 2 and I'll leave it at the top of the description. Thanks and let's get right into the video. If a charge is not on our fee schedule, we will pay 30% of the billed amount. Really now? Not my story, but a doctor I know. They're a rheumatologist who does a lot of chemotherapy, and chemo medicine can be pricey as hell. The cost of the doctor for the medicine in today's story was about $5,000. The doctor normally bills $10,000 to the patient's insurance. Now, normally, insurance will pay roughly $6,000 to $7,000 on the medicine, but every year, medical billing codes get shuffled around, and insurers, intentionally or unintentionally, are slow in updating their system. January hits and the code for this medicine changes. The doctor bills a huge major insurance company the usual $10,000, but under the new code. The insurer, however, has not updated their system. Their fee schedule still has the old code, and the new one is not listed in the fee schedule. The insurer's policy is, if a charge is not on our fee schedule, we will pay 30% of the billed amount. So they pay $3,000 for this medicine that cost the doctor $5,000 to purchase, and several hours to administer. The doctor is quite unhappy. Enough of these cases crop up in a short amount of time that he has to mortgage his house in order to pay for his patient's medicine, while fighting with the insurance company for payment. Several dozens of calls and 3 in-person appeals later, the insurance company insists that for the month of January, before the medicine was added to our fee schedule, we can only pay 30% of the billed amount. So the doctor goes back and rebills the original encounter and decides, screw it, let's bill them $1 million for this medicine. Submits the claim electronically, it's accepted by their automated system, processed by their EDI system, and they pay it. After months of being jerked around, their automated system literally throws $300,000 at him for a $5,000 at-cost medicine. They will pay 30% of the billed amount. That's in the contracted agreement. Insurance companies often overpay, and will often come back and ask for their money back for their own darn errors, sometimes with interest. So he and I are fully expecting them to fight this bill, but they're contracted to pay 30% of the billed amount, and the doctor said he went over the contract with a lawyer and sees no provisions for recoupment in this particular situation. If the insurer pays more than they're contracted to, they can recoup, but since the contract specifies 30% of the billed amount, with no stated limitations on sane or reasonable billed amounts, and since the insurer actually paid it, he, and more importantly his lawyer, thinks he might actually have a strong case to keep the money. The funny thing is, I guarantee that insurance company won't even realize they just lost $300,000, because they have so much money and whatever, they just throw it around, it's stupid. But I'm trying to help. Okay, never mind, I'll just do my job. My story takes place back in middle school. I attended an all-boys school that just happened to be across the street from an all-girls school. Most of the time, each school did its own thing, but for certain events the schools collaborated, and us boys were able to interact with the young ladies from across the way. One of these events was the annual middle school musical, which required both male and female performers. I wasn't much of an actor or singer, but I did want to hang out with girls, or at least be near them. And so, with a little persistence, I landed a spot on the tech crew. My job was to run the light board. Not exactly a glamorous position, but overall it was a pretty sweet gig. I just had to follow along with the show and push the correct faders up and down at the right time. I sat up in the tech booth with another kid, Chris, who ran the soundboard. Chris was a good dude and we got along well. During rehearsals, we would give each other reminders about upcoming cues and generally try to work together. I'd mention that he should adjust the levels in the house. He'd remind me about a background wash that was happening in the next scene. You know, like a team. Chris and I were often joined in the booth by one teacher or another who would stand behind us. I guess just to make sure things were going smoothly. These teachers generally let us run our own show and didn't interfere unless there was some pressing issue or if we had a question. A couple points that will become relevant. The musical we were putting on was a modern retelling of the Cinderella story. There were songs and dances in various contemporary styles, a hip-hop fairy godmother, that kind of thing. But it was essentially the Cinderella story, which meant that the girl playing Cinderella would have to magically change from being dressed in rags to a beautiful gown for the ball. In practical terms, the actress would have to sprint to crew members who were waiting just off stage with her new outfit and then change as quickly as she could to make it back in time for the process to seem realistic. It had to be as fast as possible. Meanwhile, the fairy godmother would be on stage, waving her hand, and I'd be making the lights go crazy to keep the audience distracted. The other thing you should know is that this was the mid-90s, and the school had purchased a brand spanking new set of wireless microphones for this production. These were the kind that you would clip onto your body along with a small battery pack. Each of the major characters in the musical got one of these. E.g. Cinderella, Fairy Godmother, Prince Charming, etc. The mics were controlled from the soundboard in the booth. When characters walked on stage, their mic had to be brought up in the house speakers. When they walked off stage, it would have to be brought down. Flash to the dress rehearsal the day before the big performance. Chris and I are up in the booth, he at the soundboard, me at the light board. One of the teachers is hovering behind us, as usual. The show is going according to plan. The scene where Cinderella has to change into her gown is coming up. I turn to Chris and say, "Hey man, remember to pull the fader down on Cinderella's mic when she goes off stage." He nods, he times it perfectly, and the scene goes off without a hitch. A moment later, the teacher leans in from behind us and says to me, "How about you pay attention to your own job? He's doing sound, you're doing lights." I'm going to be honest here, I don't remember this teacher as being a particularly obnoxious human being. I think she was more or less an okay person, but this comment came off extremely witchy. It was weirdly aggressive and unnecessary. It hurt my feelings too, because Chris and I helped each other all the time. But I say, okay, and we finish out the dress rehearsal. The next day is the show. Packed house. Chris and I are up in the booth, along with the same teacher from the dress rehearsal. As soon as I sit down, I put both hands on the light board and look straight ahead. No communication, no talking, nothing. The show begins. House lights down, stage lights up, and off we go. I am glued to the script, where I've noted each lighting change. I want to make sure that everything is exactly right. That's my job. The story progresses. Fairy Godmother shows up, talks for a little bit, then waves her magic wand. I dial up flashing lights in a bunch of colours, and Cinderella rushes off stage to change into her gown. Then, through the house speakers, at full volume, you hear the actress playing Cinderella yell, Oh my god, where is my... I glance over at Chris as he slowly, sadly pulls the fader back down into the off position. Poor kid looked crushed. The audience is naturally perplexed at first, but they seem to figure out what happened pretty quickly and chuckle about it for a few seconds. I can't help myself and turn my head to look back at the teacher, who does not make eye contact with me, but is looking rather petrified. In retrospect, it's a little sad that the show had a big flub like that. On the other hand, it was satisfying as hell to see that teacher put in her place, simply by doing my job. That was a great malicious compliance, but poor Chris. He's probably mortified about what just happened. Sorry, you must have ice. This is a bit of a short and sweet one. Some years ago, I was at a bowling alley / pool hall with my brother-in-law, and feeling a bit thirsty. Went to get a root beer, but I didn't want ice. The nice kid behind the counter explained to me that it was their policy to serve soda with ice. Okay, can you just give me a cup of ice? The kid said, sure. I then throw the ice in the trash. Can I now have a root beer, same cup? The kid laughed, filled my cup to full, and I paid. Told you it was short. I swear loads of places do this, they fill the entire cup with ice, so it's cheaper for them I guess, because when they pour the drink, it doesn't actually fill the entire way. Patronising library user. My computer is better than yours. When I was a young student, I used to work part-time in a university library. All the evening shift workers were in their early 20s and pretty relaxed. About once a week, this one patron would come in. He was in his 40s. A Ned Flanders looking guy with a massive chip on his shoulder. Despite the mustache and cardigans with egg down the front, he obviously thought he was some sort of Superman thinker and despised every single library employee. He especially went out of his way to belittle the women workers. Ned had access to the library as an alumnus, not as a student or faculty, and it plainly ground his gears that these feckless young students could breeze around the library and take out the books that he, the great brain, deserved so much more. He especially resented having to return books when other patrons requested them. One night, he came carrying a huge pile of books. He walked up to the counter where I was sitting and calmly said in a small voice, "This book has been recalled, and my computer is better than yours." He lifted a book off the top of the pile and put it on the counter. He said the same thing again in a slightly louder voice and slapped the next book on the counter. After about 12 books, he was screaming and slamming them on the counter. People could hear him 2 floors up. Neddy then stormed out, his mo flecked in spittle. Now, when he put the first book down, I could see that it didn't come from our library. It was from a nearby municipal library. None of the books he was returning were ours. I tried to tell him politely, but he was so angry he cut me off. We used to swap books with the other library every couple of weeks. We didn't hurry with this pile. I hope this guy enjoyed his overdue fines from the municipal library. I'm not sure what his computer had to do with it. I guess he meant our automated overdue notice system. That guy just sounded like he was having a really bad week or something. I don't know, it was kind of weird. So, you want to cash in your rain-cheque, eh? My wife worked in a grocery store as a cashier for a little while, and this story always stuck with me. The stores in our area have great sales on things like soda and margarine all the time, and are willing to give rain-cheque to people who came in if the store runs out of the item during the sale. You can get up to 20 of the items at the sale price within the next 30 days. All this is clearly listed on the receipt. This sweet-looking older lady trundles up to the cash register with a cartload of margarine and slaps her rain-cheque down on the counter. My wife looks in the cart and sees that it's way more than 20, but what the heck? She starts to tell the lady to put them up so she can ring them in when the old dear starts yelling that my wife should unload the cart for her. Why is she so slow? Why did she look at the number of items in the cart? Doesn't she know how to do her job? Etc. That's when my wife notices that the rain-cheque expired the day before. She pointed this out and the old lady goes crazy, starts screaming for a manager. The manager comes over, takes one look at this lunatic, and sides with store policy. The old bat just walked out, and the wife never saw her again. How long does the expiry date last on margarine? I presume it's quite a while if you're buying 20 at once. Oh, and quick reminder, remember to go subscribe to Storytime too, it's at the top of the description. Thank you. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like. And if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.